Welcome to DT2 Comics Chat Review. Today we'll be reviewing The Flash Season 1, Episode 2, Fastest Man Alive. The Good. Alrighty, now in terms of what I liked about this episode, what I thought was good, first of all, it's still, I know it's only the second episode, but it still got that wonder, that freshness, that newness. And Barry said he was going 352 miles an hour, very specific. Okay, it's really, really good when we have some kind of idea of how fast he's actually going. Because when we don't really have kind of an idea of the stakes or what can and cannot happen if we apply some level of real world physics. I know we can't with super speed. Super speed is one of those powers that actually has the most required secondary powers. Okay, so yeah, if you've got super speed, you have to have the most other kinds of secondary powers to support it. But still, we get some kind of idea of how fast Barry's moving. And then also, there are real world physical effects. He becomes hypoglycemic, okay, because his metabolism is sped up, so he's got to eat more. That's totally in line with the Flash from the comics, and that makes complete sense. If such a thing were true, if a human body really could move at those speed levels, then, there would be all kinds of side effects to deal with, like, again, secondary powers cover it all, but like the friction, but also the amount of pounding your knees and your ankles would take, and all your weight coming down, and how do you not push yourself off the ground into space, into the upper atmosphere if you start running that fast? And what about when you stop? All of your bones and internal organs would come flying out through your skin, and you couldn't stop on a dime. And what about how do you see? And what about the wind resistance? And what about all that wind in your eyes? And what about all those bugs in your teeth? And can you think that fast? Can you talk that fast? Again, there's just a million different things. So yes, this is comic book physics. Yes, it's not real science. And yes, you have to pick and choose. Okay, but I do like, again, what they did pick and what they did choose in terms of Barry having some real effects. Also in this episode, we begin to dip into the depths of the Barry's three dads relationships. Okay, Barry has three dads in season 1. He has his biological dad, Henry Allen, which is in jail for his mother's murder. We have Joe West, who became his legal guardian but didn't let him visit Henry in prison, but for all intents and purposes raised Barry and considers him a son. And then we have Harrison Wells, his science dad. And, we know there's some more things going on there. But that's really the heart of the show and the entire first season is the love and the guidance and the support of his three dads. Okay? And that's on full display here. And you can feel it. It's one thing that both Grant and the three veteran actors sell so well. You can feel that Harrison Wells is intensely interested in what happens to Barry for nefarious reasons, but we see that the concern is indeed genuine. And we can see the way Henry loves Barry and wants him to enjoy his life in spite of the fact that he's incarcerated. And we can see that Joe has been looking out for Barry's best interests for as long as he's had him. So again, it just sets that up and feeds into that perfectly. Also, Barry realizes he needs Joe's help in solving his mother's murder, and that was a point of contention for them before, but they decide to work together on it. That's always good to see when fathers and sons can reconcile when they've been apart on different things. And the thing about both Barry and Joe, Joe's a little bit more proud than Barry, but they're both kind of stubborn and both kind of headstrong. So it's interesting when they kind of get on any kind of particular tip because they're just going to stay there. And then, so it's good to see them face that in each other, kind of mirror it back to the other person and realize they kind of need to get past that because teaming up will have, a better effect. Two heads are better than one. I also like Danton Black, the clone guy in this episode, because I know we're going to be on, Freak of the Week kind of rotations for a long time, kind of like Smallville. But I actually do like this guy because he's not evil for the sake of being evil per se, but he's going after Simon Stagg, who stole his research. So he's actually got a reason for his vengeance and revenge. Now, obviously, that doesn't make murder right, but I'm saying he's not just pulling an evil, mustache twirling attitude out of nowhere. Now, if you know anything about Simon Stagg, you know that Simon Stagg is a part of Metamorpho's world. And Metamorpho in the comics is Rex Mason, who has an accident and becomes kind of infused with different kinds of chemicals. He's able to create different chemical formulas, turn himself into different things, different shapes, gases, elements, a true elemental man, but he's got a funny shaped body. And, so he's kind of a fusion of the different things he is now. So the love of his life is actually Simon Stagg's daughter. So they've got a whole world there. Now, I thought we were going to get into Metamorpho's world, which I thought would really, really be awesome. But at least it's a great wink to the larger DC universe to see Simon Stagg in the episode. I love the way that Team Flash is not in agreement with what should be going on because Caitlin is doing what Caitlin does. She's concerned about Barry's health and medical well-being and his physical condition as he uses these powers because she knows that it's going to have a profound effect on him because she knows the human body is not really meant to experience what he's experiencing. And Cisco, basically being the voice of the audience and the resident fanboy, is like, hey, this is great. I'm part of a superhero team. Cisco is already down with Barry using his powers. I also like the fact that, Barry kind of had sense enough in the beginning to keep his adventures on the low and not let everybody see him. Now, we know it's not going to stay that way, but I definitely think that was a wise decision in terms of, playing it out that way, that he would realize that maybe telling the world right now isn't the thing to do. There's maybe some more bugs to be worked out. You can also already see how happy Barry is to be saving the day, and that is spot on for the Flash. The Flashes are generally one of the happiest superhero families in all of comicdom. They love being Flashes. And so you can already see kind of the boyish glee on Barry's face as he's zipping around saving people. And that is spot on. That's fantastic. And that's what gives us, again, that emotional bonding with the hero because we feel his joy and we're kind of going on that journey with him. And what else do they establish in this episode? Why, it's Snowberry, of course, because Cisco says he hasn't seen anybody make Caitlin that angry since Ronnie. How much more of a clear reference could they make to the fact that she cares so deeply about Barry already that he's already making her mad like that? Okay? So there's no reason to have that line included. I haven't seen her that angry since her dead fiance, unless they're trying to allude to the fact that she has, some kind of feelings for Barry as well. A word from our sponsors. Read comics. Your enjoyment of a show is enhanced when you read the original source material. Click on the link below this video to get some outstanding comic recommendations. So what did I think was meh about this episode? Pretty much his interactions with Iris, because we're already seeing foreshadowing of how she's kind of shoehorned in the episode because the action is driven by Team Flash and Joe West. So we see Cisco, Caitlin, and Harrison Wells with their differing opinions on what Barry should do with his powers, which makes sense. And we see Joe going back and forth with Barry between him being a son and him being a hero, and Joe believing in him, and the whole parental thing about letting go enough to let your kid kind of jump out there, and the whole thing about Joe having to change his worldview. All that was good. But every time he interacts with Iris, it's kind of like, you kind of have to ask, like, why is she there? If she's his sister and she's kind of off on her own adventures, okay. If she's his love interest, then why aren't they actually together? Because they're going to do that whole thing where, she's got to go with whoever else. And, so it's like, just like, you know what I mean? It would be different if they had already established a romantic relationship and Barry was struggling with whether or not to tell her. It would be different if they'd been together for a while. It would be different if Iris was kind of fully in her career or whatever. But you just have to ask, you see what's driving the action in the whole episode, and it's definitely not that relationship. So is this Iris, on the way to being a journalist? I guess it is. But, this is only the second episode, and she's already got that fish out of water feel. And also, when we see little Barry, when we see little Care Bear Barry, okay, what do we see? We see Iris as a kid as well. This further establishes the brother-sister dynamic, that they were living in the same house, 9, 10, 11 years old, under the same parent, under the same authority figure. So flash forward, 7, 10 years later or whatever, and he's in love. No. Still the worst part about the show. I know I said that last time, but it just kind of because it just looks more just like, that's your stepsister. Just no, you shouldn't be having those kind of feelings and thoughts about her at any point in the relationship. And you know what else they further cement in this episode? They further cement how well Iris and Eddie work together. Okay, Rick Cosnett and Candace Patton have great chemistry, but they honestly just look happy. They just look really happy, and Iris lights up when Eddie comes around, and she's not always, picking at him and throwing little jabs at him the way she does at Barry, and it's just, it's just really disgusting to see a stepbrother pining after his sister, while she's dating some other guy and whatever. And those two probably have one of the best romantic relationships in terms of chemistry and fit on the entire show. So again, the show is going in the opposite direction that it needs to go in to convince us that somehow Barry and Iris belong together, because so far they don't in any way, shape, or form. Okay? I know I put Iris and Barry in the meh category, but I also have to put them in the worst part about this episode, because what do they continue to prove in this episode when it comes to Barry and Iris? They continue to prove that she does not want to be a part of his world. Everything that turns Barry on, that he's interested in, that he's fascinated by, he's got to explain the science to her, and she doesn't want any part of it. What does that tell you? The ugly. Now, in terms of what I thought was ugly, I'm only using that ugly to contrast it between good and meh, because I don't necessarily mean in this context that it was bad, but two things just had me scratching my head. First of all, the fact that Black commits suicide, because I was hoping he would hang around. But the biggest thing that I thought that was just unnecessarily ugly, was the fact that Harrison Wells kills Simon Stagg. I'm like, oh my goodness, Simon Stagg would have made such a great recurring villain on some level. He's like the kingpin of the DC universe on some level. He's not exactly like that. He's more of a discount Lex Luthor, but he can be worked into with his kind of his shady connections. He can be like a combination of Lex and the Kingpin, which is where I thought they were going, and I thought it was going to be a springboard in a Metamorphosed world, and I thought we were going to see so much more from him, and then Harrison Wells just kills him. Okay, so I know he's got to do evil villainy things to show us that he's the evil villainy villain. I get that. I just don't think he had to do this thing. So we get rid of, Jamie Madrox, that's a Marvel wink. We get rid of Clone Man, and we get rid of Simon Stagg in the same episode. And I'm like, the part that's ugly is disposable villains and disposing of them so quickly. I'm like, no, I want to see these people come back. And I really, 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 really wanted Simon Stagg to be a part of this overall universe. Imagine, the Wrath of Khan, but there's no Khan. Imagine if Kirk had killed him, or they had got rid of him, or he couldn't have been brought back. Then we would have missed out on the whole, best Star Trek movie ever. So, there's just so much power in leaving the villains around, giving them some kind of reason for revenge or vendetta against the hero or whatever. So I really wish they had come up with something for Harrison Wells to do to show his evil, like maybe sabotage an experiment, like maybe stealing money, like, maybe slander or libel, maybe just an outright lie, something. There's plenty of things he could have done, like, maybe he could have stolen some information that Joe was going to give Barry. I'm just pulling stuff out of there with that one. But the point I'm trying to make is he didn't have to do that, and he didn't have to kill what could have potentially been one of the best villains going. I just thought that was just really unnecessarily there. All in all, this is another great episode of The Flash, again, directed by David Nutter. And I know we're only 2 episodes in, but again, it's still a lot of fun to watch. And, we're going on the journey of discovery with Barry, which is great. So again, I give this one like an 8 out of 10. Would have been 10 out of 10 if we could have kept Simon Stagg and Metamorpho's world, y'all. But still highly recommended, so definitely check it out. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell to know when new videos drop.